Welcome back to the Turbo Branding Show, where we help you ignite your growth by leveraging your brand to grow faster, easier, and more successfully. When most business owners think about branding, they think about things like logos, colors, websites, and their messaging. But today, we're going to explore a dimension of branding that literally surrounds your customers the moment they walk through the door, your physical space. Before anyone says a word, before any sales conversation begins, your space is already speaking for your brand. And the question is, what is it saying? My guest today, Joel Berman, is an architect who has spent over 22 years designing spaces for restaurants, retail environments, franchise brands, and commercial businesses across North America. He runs a national design firm right here in Chicago with a global team, and he's a unique architect who thinks about space not just as a functional problem, but as a brand strategy tool. And we're going to talk about how he has built a brand for his business, as well as how he helps companies build theirs through their environment. So if you've ever wondered how your physical space might be helping or hurting your brand, this episode is a must listen. Joel, welcome to the show. I'm so glad you're here.
It's great to meet you. Thank you for having me.
Yeah. No, I'm excited today to hear all about how you've built the brand for your firm, as well as how you help others do the same through architectural design. So let me tell my listeners a little bit more about you. Read your bio here for a second before we jump in. But Joel Berman is the founder and president of Berman Architecture, a national professional design firm based in Chicago, specializing in retail franchise prototypes and physical retail locations, commercial kitchens, food service, restaurants, bars, hospitality, and adaptive reuse and heritage restoration. His firm has employees in the US, Canada, Korea, and India. He is a registered architect in multiple U.S. states, and he's a member of the Association of Licensed Architects. He is designated by the City of Chicago as a self-certified architect and as a preferred neighborhood opportunity fund, Chicago Matching Construction Fund architect, which is very cool. Joel emphasizes the use of clear and fast sketching as part of the design process. And he has extensive experience as a teacher of architectural sketching at an impressive variety of colleges, architectural centers, and associations. Again, welcome, Joel. Did I miss anything that you'd want me to share here?
No, I think that's great.
Awesome. All right, well, let's dig in, because I'm very fascinated with what you do, let alone how you've built your business and your brand. But tell me about your professional journey. What interested you in architecture, and when did you start your own firm?
So what interested me in architecture, I think it goes back to grammar school. I was interested in how things were built. I can remember that there was a forest behind the house that I grew up in, and I dug a hole under the fence so that I could just be in the forest, and I grabbed old pieces of plywood and I would throw them together and I would build forts. I would take my mother's rags and I would sew and make stuffed animals. And I also liked to draw. So I can remember being frustrated that I couldn't draw to make things look realistic when I was 7 or 8. So I took my allowance money, went to Crocs and Britanos, and strangely, I bought a book that was for grammar school teachers to teach kids how to draw.
Okay.
So that's a little bit of my evolution towards architecture.
Okay, awesome.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, and when did you start your own firm? And, when did you decide it was time to start adding and growing and get to the point where you're at today?
Started the firm in May of 2002.
Okay.
And I'd been practicing since 1986. And to be honest, I was working in college also. So before then. And I'd always known that I wanted to have my own business. I'd watched my grandparents and a lot of relatives, they all had small businesses. And some of them were founded during the Depression. And so I was always around that culture. In the area where I was growing up, there were a lot of small business owners. And I just wanted to control my destiny. And I watched my grandfather in particular had a store on 14th Street. And emulating him is not quite the right way to say it, but I like that he controlled his destiny.
Okay. Perfect. All right. So tell me a little bit more about your firm. We're talking about branding. So how do you position your design firm?
So when I started out, we were doing houses and house additions and like a smattering of neighborhood commercial. So almost all of our work was in the Andersonville neighborhood of Chicago.
Okay.
And then we started doing more work in the Chicago area, and I realized we were doing a lot of franchise locations, which is really boring. It means you conform to somebody else's design and then you just execute it. And we were oftentimes taking an incomplete prototype and then finishing it off because the prototypes that were being provided were mediocre or incomplete or just not very good.
Okay.
And so I thought, what can we do to really brand as creative? And also, I like to draw. So in 2017, I had an employee who was an accomplished graphic designer who had gone back to get his master's in architecture. And we rebranded as creative. So we did new brand standards.
Mm-hmm.
So we created a new logo, and our logo is actually a cross of a pen and a pencil, like an X,
Yep.
rebranded as Berman Design. And then I also wanted to include multiple creative disciplines. So it's architecture, interior design, graphic design, other types of branding. And I wanted to bring that under one roof so that we were a creative combine rather than technical architects. So we're architect-led technical.
Okay.
We'd been using building information modeling software that's basically working drawings in 3D since 2008. I'm an early adopter, so we had bought Revit.
Okay.
And it had rendering capabilities. So my concept was that we would create retail prototypes. So prototype would be, say, a restaurant. Say we were to take a burger joint.
Yeah.
The look and feel of that burger joint, not just the look and feel, but the technical layout, the commercial kitchen equipment, the point of sale, the customer journey when entering into the business, what it would look and feel like, but also how everything was built. So typically, most prototypes would be multiple different documents. There would be an old construction set from a location that was built. Then there might be an interior design package. Then there might be a separate kitchen package. Then there might be graphics that was a separate package. So the concept was to bring it all into one creative package. And then for the franchisor, they could use that as, first of all, as the enforcement device for the brand, for the actual brand, for the
Yeah.
look and feel of the brand, but also for marketing and business development. So they could actually show it to potential franchisees, show it to contractors, and maybe just pull it up on their phone during a cocktail party.
Hmm.
And my assumption was at the time that other architects were doing that, but so far I haven't seen anybody doing that.
Yeah, I'm seeing. That's awesome. Yeah, that's a unique proposition. So, and I'll ask you if we can maybe take a look at what that looks like here in a second, because I think you've got a sample of that site. But let me ask you a little bit about franchises, because like you're talking about with these standards and all these packages that the franchises use, a lot of what they're going for obviously is consistency, right? So brand consistency, experience consistency. But are you ever asked to put like a local flavor to any of these, retail establishments? Are you allowed to be creative that way? And if so, how does that process work?
Absolutely. So, yes, and it's not as hard as you would think. The idea is you want it to be scalable,
Mm-hmm.
very, very easy to build quickly and to do multiple locations at the same time. So, how do you tailor it to specific locations? For some brands, they want it exactly the same everywhere.
Yeah.
Here's how you can actually take a brand and do it locally. So we have a brand called Local Burger. They're out of Long Island. And what we do is Local Burger, and then we have a zip code.
Okay.
And the zip code is actually the zip code of the actual location. And then they have a little section where there can be, like a board with local requirements. There's a brand, the name escapes me right now. We did several stores where we actually designed 80% of the prototype
Uh-huh.
and an in-house artist, and we left walls blank. And
Mm.
then that artist would design those features. They were all a little bit different, but 80, I'd say more than that, more like 90% of it was consistent through all the
Consistent.
locations. And so the contractor would build it out, leave a blank slate, and then the artist would come in for a week and actually finish that part off. So there
Okay.
are various ways to do that. I mean, it doesn't always have to be completely consistent, but you want a brand consistency, and then you want rules that are related, and you want it very, very scalable.
Okay. All right. Do you ever have clients come to you? I'm sure with franchises, they've already developed, like you said, some of the standards they need in the brand, and now they're looking to grow. But what if someone were to come to you and say, I have a plan. I need one location, but then I know I'm going to build and adapt in the future. How do you translate their brand from scratch into a unique physical space? Do you have a process? Is there some kind of unique technique that you use?
First off, if you have one location, that's not enough to do a prototype. You should have two, but probably three locations, because you need to go through iterations of it and see what works. And we did some prototypes early on for the first restaurant, and I just don't think it's a good idea. You want to have more experience to figure out what the prototype should be. But how do we create a brand for a startup, I think is what
Yes.
you're asking.
Yes.
So first of all, it's to have a real intense conversation about the story of the brand.
Okay.
So I'll ask, what is the story of the brand? And sometimes people will just say, well, we sell burgers. Like, why do we sell burgers? And I'll dig into it. And I won't ask, what should the store look like? It's more like, how should the store feel to a person walking in? Should they feel like they're with family? Should they feel hugely inspired? Should they feel elevated? And why?
Hmm.
And then if it relates to food, what is the food and why?
Okay.
And then I really try to get into the experience. And we can't really do branding unless we really understand intimately what's motivating people. And everybody has a story, and the story needs to be expressed in the brand. And right now, everybody wants an experience. They want great products, they want great service, they want great food, but everything is very experiential. So we sometimes will create that experience based on the brand and really the inner longings of the founder.
Okay. All right. No, that's great. Obviously, it's amazing that you do that because I don't know that many architects, but the ones that I do know, I don't think they go as deep as that, or at least that I've seen in terms of coming, really trying to dig out the brand and then being able to move beyond just the physical space and to maybe help and guide and create the experience like what you were just talking about. So I think that's
Well,
great. So yeah, go ahead.
I think we should all be beyond our specific profession, that we should really reach out and bring the most we can to our clients, our friends, and our family. So we try to be more than just architects. So we really feel strongly about, helping tell the story, understanding the story, and then also helping with multiple resources. So the story is just one of those resources. Sometimes we help bring in funding. Sometimes we bring in other experts, with expertise that we don't have.
Right.
Sometimes it's more, we act more as a sounding board, but that's all very important. But it needs to be a very intimate process and non-transactional.
Okay. Okay. Well, is there anything, I know before we jumped on to record this, you showed me a really unique concept that you were working on for a space here in the Chicago area. I was wondering if you could maybe kind of show that for those who are watching the podcast. It'd be really kind of a cool thing to see. And for those that are listening.
Okay, so we are Neighborhood Opportunity Fund Chicago Preferred Architects, which means that for city neighborhood opportunity fund grants, which are mostly on the south side and west sides of Chicago, the city will actually pay our design fees.
Okay.
So this is
yeah, what are we looking at here?
Of a mixed use building. And this is a restaurant in the mixed use building. So it's apartments, a bar, and then a restaurant.
Okay.
And these are just some early concepting. And the idea is to bring something that's very, very local and expressive.
Yeah, I like the colors. It seems very lively. Coming from Chicago, I love the brick as well. That seems to kind of resonate with a lot of the Chicago architecture.
So
Now,
this,
are you doing design for the whole mixed use building or
yeah,
specifically the restaurant? Okay.
yes, it's just I happen to have this video of the restaurant. So we photorealistically, first of all, we lay it out, the construction drawings in 3D, and then we
Okay.
render it photorealistically so that people understand what they are getting. And this is a very early rendition of it.
Sure. Yeah. Well, I
And
love it because it's a way to tell the story of how you're going to bring this brand to life, this experience to life. So I would think this is a powerful tool that you can use.
yeah, and we've started doing it with residential clients as well, where we'll, for some clients, we'll photorealistically render the entire. We did a co-op on East Lakeshore Drive recently that's just now completing. And we did complete photorealistic renderings of the entire unit before we even submitted it for permit.
Okay. All right. Excellent.
Those are tools that we have. And the other thing is when we add the finishes to the model,
Yeah.
it actually tied into the construction drawings. So if we change the finishes in the construction software, it changes the rendering and vice versa.
Okay.
So what we do is we've curated a lot of tools to give the best experience.
Okay. Do you have any examples or can you share any stories of maybe a client you worked with where just by completely changing the space that they had, it made a big difference in how they delivered their brand?
A really simple one was it's one of the first commercial clients we had. It's In Fine Spirits Wine Bar,
Hmm.
and they're in Andersonville, and they had almost no capital.
Okay.
So I spoke to the owners, and it was a husband and wife. And the wife's father was a rough carpenter. So I thought, well, they can't afford custom millwork, but we could design something with plywood and solid trim
Mm-hmm.
that they could actually build themselves. So we took oak veneer plywood and then they did some light staining to it with solid trim in the front. And we created a very modular display system for the wine bottles and then also designed very simple tables built with the same product. They had a logo that was quite beautiful. It was 3 squares with wine bottles in the middle of each square.
Uh-huh.
So just built it into the store. So it's recessed boxes where the wine bottles are hung. And originally they were supposed to be backlit glass. They couldn't afford it. So we just put the wine bottles in
Hmm.
and they put track lighting. And that actually was better. It's better than if we would have done the other piece. So it turned out that that particular store it had at the time, and I think it still does, some of the highest per square foot sales in the whole country.
Wow.
And then part of it was just formulating it so that the wine display was at eye level and then
Uh-huh.
it was above and below.
Okay.
And that what was in the center was not the most expensive wine, but the wines that were running, say, $10 to $22 a bottle, because that's the wine that flew off the shelves.
Okay. All right. So,
And we helped them get up and running very quickly. And then I found them some foundation funding to get started as well so they could stock their shelves. It was just a connection that I had. And so bringing all of those things together worked very well. And then they were pretty successful, actually. It's a pretty successful store.
lovely. Lovely.
So that's a very simple, it's like sometimes the simplest is the best.
Yeah. No, I like how you leveraged their logo design into the design of the space. And obviously, I like what you're talking about, where in the middle are the most popular wines, so to speak. So it makes it easy for the consumer who's walking in to find something that they're looking for, as opposed to, as we all have walked into retail space and feel like you're being force-fed something that's right up front that you might not necessarily want. So love that. Love that concept. So, well, let me take a step back and talk again about your brand, because I think other small business owners could learn a lot about how you expanded globally. And, talking about how do you actually communicate what the brand is that you're trying to deliver to employees who are not in the office with you every day. We all have, dealt with virtual employees, but this is even beyond that with time zones and culture and things like that. So how do you make sure that your brand is consistent?
It's really, really easy. It's very straightforward. So first off, you need to communicate very clearly. So for employees that are overseas, I fly to India once a year, and it's really to build rapport with the team.
Yeah.
And also not to have them at arm's length. So they're direct employees. It's not an outsourcing agency.
Okay.
So everybody feels a part of the same entity. Then the other thing is everybody sells. So we have a deck and everybody sells with the deck. Like I may run through the deck, they'll open up a 3D file, show it fully rendered, and talk about what we do. So everybody understands the mission. And it's very easy. If you include everybody in the sales process, then they all understand and everybody completely understands the culture. The other thing is our cultural pillars, the culture of the company, was actually drafted overseas.
Oh, interesting.
So I feel like it needs to be a little bit of give and take both ways, but it was actually drafted, by employees outside of the US, and it resonates and everybody understands it. It's also documented and clear, but I don't think it would work if we didn't regularly communicate in that way. Another thing that we do is we have a call every day at the same time where everybody from around the world is on the call. So right now it's at 8 a.m.
Okay.
When the time changes, it's 7:30 in the morning. So for people in the Far East, that's actually into the evening. 7:30 in the morning is, I guess I've adapted to it, so it doesn't bother me anymore, but it's earlier than we would like to do in US Central Time.
Right.
And so we just all adapt a little bit. The other thing is that I'll communicate with people right before I go to bed commonly. So if somebody really needs something, I'll schedule an appointment or I'll have a call. And I enjoy doing it because I like the people. Or I may do some things overseas before the morning meeting.
Okay.
And it's a matter of being flexible. And then, in the same way, we give flexibility to employees that are out of the country. They all work from their homes. They're all with their kids. And a lot of them, like we have an employee in Canada that actually tends to work later at night so that they can carve out some time in the middle of the day to be with their kids. And that works just fine.
Yeah. Nice.
As long as it's consistent and we've worked it out. So it's about being flexible, having clear communication, everybody understanding the mission.
Yep.
And also making sure that we get some face time. So when I went to India this year, Jae-sung from Korea actually flew in and we were at an employee's wedding.
Oh, okay.
And then I spoke at a university where some of our employees actually graduated from. It's tying all that in together. And then we always do a corporate retreat.
Okay.
But those things are important. They don't just happen. You have to be intentional and you have to draw people in and you have to communicate repeatedly and consistently.
Love it.
Especially when things are remote, then you need to push the communication.
Yeah. No, I would agree. No, thank you for sharing that. So it seems like you are definitely doing all the right things to get the team to gel together and understand the culture as well as the brand. But I would also think that having a global team, does that bring different perspectives into designing spaces for your brands? Like, is that something you leverage as a competitive advantage? Okay.
Very much. So we did an Indian restaurant in the western suburbs. And it was interesting. I was able to, there's a God in every city. And so the location of, the food was from Madurai, and there's a specific Madurai God.
Okay.
And so I was able to, I have a contact in India who's from Madurai, who lives in Bangalore. And I was able to call her up and just ask her, well, how should the God be positioned? Can it be hanging from the ceiling? Oh, no. That's not appropriate. It needs to be tethered to the ground and in this type of location. And you don't want to put it near alcohol. Those things all have meaning. a really meaningful interaction was when we're doing a Kyrgyzstani restaurant in Des Plaines.
Oh, okay.
And I remember we had Kyrgyzstani, like the owner was Kyrgyzstani, the chef was Kyrgyzstani, and then Shivani from Delhi was actually presenting the design. And then we had Jason from Korea. And then there were, I was on the call. And then there was an employee who was of Pakistani descent. And we were all trying to interpret what the Kyrgyzstani experience would be and how that would relate to the look and feel of the restaurant. And we ended up designing a mural that related to spring and the pasture and specific valleys and the specific ambiance. We were able to nail it down, but I thought that was really interesting that here we are from all over the world trying to understand what the Kyrgyzstani experience and story is and what the specific story of the restaurant brand will be. Yeah. And that restaurant is under construction now.
Oh, that's cool. We've talked a lot about restaurants as examples, things like that. And we know retail spaces, really work hard to create the same kind of experience when you walk in the door, and you talked about the wine store and things like that. But what about like office buildings or commercial spaces? Have you ever dealt with a client where the brand was still impactful and important because they were trying to create a feeling for their employees, maybe not necessarily of their customers?
I think it's all in one.
Okay.
You create a brand and it's for everybody, not just for the customer, but it's for you, your employees, and it needs to be really deep. Mm-hmm. Needs to permeate everything. Some stories about that. We did a bakery on Belmont. The owner was insistent that there would be natural light in the kitchen because he'd worked for so many years without natural. I think employees need to be in spaces that are comfortable and unique and bring life. We're designing a commercial kitchen equipment warehouse and test kitchen in South Carolina.
Yeah.
Near Myrtle Beach. And so we're talking with the owner right now about the warehouse, and his general sense is, well, it's a warehouse. I think we can make it a little bit nicer. There's things that we can do that don't really add a lot of costs, that make it more human and make it more human from the exterior and the interior, and leads to a better experience. And that makes the company better. That adds to the, if an employer has a workspace that's more engaging, it actually makes it a better company all around.
I agree.
And that's important.
Yeah, I love that you said that. I agree 100%. It's, we talk a lot about retention, not just only for customers, but for employees. And the physical space, I think, for companies is definitely something that helps with employee retention and even well-being to a certain extent. So I appreciate that you said that. So, well, this has been fascinating. I appreciate it, Joel, that you've shared some insights for us on, how your firm, how you've built it up, how you've positioned it, how it's evolved a little bit over the past few years, and then how you create and capture the brand for your clients in order for them to brand themselves in their physical space. So I appreciate that. Let me just ask you one question that I ask all of my guests here at the end of the show, which is, I love to give a shout out to businesses that are doing a great job with their brand, and was wondering if you would be willing to nominate someone.
I nominate Mean Mugs. Mean Mugs is a sub-brand of A10 Entertainment, and that is a client of ours. A10 Entertainment does bowling alley entertainment centers around the country.
Okay.
Right now, we have locations that we're working on in New Jersey, Texas, and California. They're 20 to 90,000 square foot spaces. And what they did was they created an ice cream brand, a milkshake brand.
Okay.
And they created a cast of cartoon characters, which we helped a little bit with. We did some illustration for them.
Yeah.
And the idea was to entice people to buy really over the top milkshakes, like bacon and pancakes with your milkshake. In your
okay.
Or peanut butter and jelly, and then you get a mug with it. and it's in most of their new locations now, but they've incorporated it really well. It's just very, very beautiful, and it speaks really well to children.
Love it. Love
They,
it.
they wanted also to increase the experience that families would have when they visited the center.
Yeah, the center. Excellent. Excellent. No, thank you so much for nominating them. Well, and Joel, thank you so much for spending time with me today. I've loved listening to hear how your company has evolved from a local Chicago shop into a global design gateway. Very, very cool. But if any of our listeners would like to learn more about you or your work, where can they find you?
They can find us at bermanarchitecture.com. That's BermanArchitecture.com. And the office is in the Andersonville neighborhood of Chicago.
Wonderful. Wonderful. All right. Well, thank you again, Joel. I appreciate you being here today and talking about branding.
Great. Thank you, Sue. I really appreciate this opportunity.
Yeah, again. And thank you all for joining us for this episode of the Turbo Branding Show. I hope you've been inspired to ignite your growth by leveraging your brand. And if you enjoyed it, I'd love it if you could help me build a strong brand following for the show. Please be sure to share this episode and like, subscribe, and leave a review. Thank you, and stay tuned for our next show.